Welcome to Keiser Voices, the story of success, brought to you by Keiser University Graduate School, here where the academic world meets personal triumph. Join us today as we dive into the captivating tales of success.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Keiser Voices. We're excited to connect with you again as we continue having the conversation this month on mental health and mental health awareness and the importance of it. Again, please make sure that you guys are checking out the descriptions of all of these conversations before you listen in. Some of these topics you could find hard, some of them you could find triggering, and we want to make sure going in that you're going in doing so, understanding and knowing what we're going to talk about ahead of time. So joining us today, we're excited to have Dr. Cayselyn Allen joining us. She is a faculty member for the online division, serving both the business and the psychology courses, as well as serving as an academic advisor to our business students. So welcome, Dr. Allen.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So our conversation today is one that Dr. Allen and I have been having for a while now, and it's really on the importance of how we can balance our everyday life and finding that balance and its impact on mental health. And it plays a pivotal role. I mean, Dr. Allen, how would we even just start to describe the influence that our personal and work-life balance has on our mental health?
Absolutely. It's a great question. So mental health significantly influences our daily personal work life. Any aspect of your life, mental health is going to be a part of. It affects our well-being, our productivity, both at home and at work, as well as our relationships. And that can be friendships, romantic relationships, even relationships we have with our friends and family. All of this is going to be impacted. There was a recent study done in the APA, or the American Psychological Association, decided that mental health encompasses emotional, psychological, and social well-being, and it affects how we think, how we feel, as well as how we act, which is something that, yes, we thought of it before, but it never really sort of came in a study to show that all of these things impact everything, just how we think, how we feel, how we act in our everyday lives, or even at work. In having low or poor mental health can lead to decreased motivation. So you come into work, you're not in the mood, you don't want to deal with it. Naturally, you're not going to be productive at work. It can also really impair our decision making. There's nothing worse than making a bad decision, and having negative mental health or poor mental health can really impact our decision making. And not just little decisions like, oh, I shouldn't have had that donut this morning, but things that are big, like making a career change. Your mental health is affecting the fact you walk into work and you're like, I quit. And there was no reason for that. It was just a down day or a bad day. This can all affect our decision making. And it also makes it even harder to manage the stressors in our personal and professional lives. So if you have poor mental health, a little bit of stress is going to set you off like you just had the most stressful event of your life. So it really does impact us in so many different ways. When it comes specifically to our personal lives, mental health affects our ability to maintain a healthy relationship. So just with your friends, with your family, you'll notice people tend to drift, right? The text message replies don't come back as quickly. The turn down as far as like, you want to go to the movies? No, I don't want to go to the movies. You want to go out? No, I can't go out to eat this weekend. That's sort of where you start with those impacts of your professional life. And when it comes to sort of, again, that personal side, coping with challenges, when you are not in a correct mental, mindset, you'll have such an issue facing any challenge. I mean, from getting dressed in the morning to making a big decision in our personal lives, as well as your overall just life satisfaction. You start to not feel as satisfied with the things that you have or the path that you're taking. even though you may have, an excellent life. A lot of people say, oh, people who, have mental health issues or have depression, well, that's rich people problems, right? We always hear that's a rich people problem. And it's not. It's really not. It affects all levels and it can impact every aspect of it. And a lot of people that talk about when they say rich people problems, they're like, I just don't have time to be depressed. I don't have time to feel anxious. And I'm like, right there is it. You say you don't have time. That means you're stressed. That means your mental health is sort of being impacted by that. So again, it is really, really significant for those that are struggling with mental health issues. And they even find it even more challenging to engage in activities that they once found pleasurable. And this could be things just like hanging out with your kids, hanging out with your spouse, catching a baseball game. All of this seems overwhelming to even think about. So it can really impact social connections, personal goals, and that's just in our personal life. When it comes to the work life, forget it. It's even worse because it affects your job performance. Again, your satisfaction at work, your interpersonal dynamics. You tend not to want to talk to your coworkers or joke. You hear a joke, you want to walk the other way because you just really don't want to deal with it. All work-life balance is hard, but when you suffer from mental health or poor mental health, it does really impact the conversations that you have at work. Can lead to absenteeism. It can lead to conflicts just because your employee says, I like your shirt, and you're like, man, why didn't you like my shirt yesterday? Like, all of these can kind of build and really, add even more stress or anxiety to someone who's sort of already suffering from mental health. So I think it has a big impact.
So this will, based on what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, it will lead to other bigger issues.
Absolutely. It can lead to depression. It can lead to anxiety. It can lead to so many other mental health issues. So it's really important to, like we say with everything medical, catch it early, right? You always want to catch it early, and you can sort of not necessarily stop the freight train, but learn better ways of coping with that freight train kind of coming at you.
So then what are some things that we can do? Like, what are those preventive measures that we could take to help us maintain that healthy work-life balance that we're always hearing about?
Absolutely. So work-life balance has always been important. It should be everybody's priority, but it really hasn't caught on until I want to say around 2010, 2011, we really started kind of hearing the phrase work-life balance. And it didn't really catch fire, if you will, until the pandemic. All of a sudden, nobody had work-life balance because everybody was at home. Everybody was worried. There was no line between work in life, sort of. So it is important to have a work-life balance. There's many people that I've spoken to, and they're like, well, it's not, I work at home, so I'm not always working. And I'm like, no, you are. You're calling me at 11 o'clock at night and you're talking about work. You don't have a work-life balance. Unless, of course, you took the whole day off and you didn't start work until 11, then still not quite a balance there. But the first thing is effective time management. If you can manage your time effectively, you will have a good work-life balance. There are many techniques that are there to help you maintain a healthy work-life balance, which really allows you to just allocate your time between your work responsibilities and your personal activities. Harvard Business Review actually came up with a list of several strategies. I won't go into them all, but if you look it up, Harvard Business Review, and look up time management strategies, you'll find the whole list. But the ones that I found that have really, really worked for me. One technique involves breaking work down into focused sort of intervals of 25 minutes or less. then taking a short break. And I know this sounds silly. You're like, I mean, I can pay attention longer than 25 minutes, right? But you tend to get burnt out. This goes for school as well. You know, you sit and you focus. And I know when I was a manager, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours working on a report, and then I'm done. Like I go home and I'm done, right? So that has impacted my work-life balance because I've taken the stress of that report home and I'm like, little dog, don't talk to me. I'm done. Don't ask me to go to dinner. I'm taking a shower and I'm going to bed. And that's not healthy. That's not healthy for any of us. So if I were to have broken that down 25, maybe even 30 minutes working on the report, take a quick loop around the campus or just go get a water break, really gives your brain time to sort of reset. And that really does help. I know a lot of people are like, but it does. It does help. And I know that a lot of us have this laser focus, right? You get started on something, and you're like, I'm not leaving until it's done. Think about how you feel after it's done. Yes, you feel great that you've accomplished it, but then you're looking around and you're like, man, that's all I did today was this one thing. And that's a great accomplishment, sure, but I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed. Again, you're going to take that home, and it's hard. Even if you work at home, you're taking it home, right? Sometimes. So taking sort of short breaks after a big workload is a great way to really help your concentration as well. It prevents burnout because it's giving your brain just time to just take a chill pill. Another very interesting one is the Eisenhower matrix. And this worked for me. I really didn't think this was going to be something that I was able to do because I do like to just dive in and get things done. And sometimes I just don't know how to prioritize. I'm just like, well, I think this is important, but it may not be as important as these other things. So basically, you break them down into quadrants, and it helps you determine what is important as well as what is urgent. Sometimes important things aren't urgent. Sometimes urgent things aren't super important, but it helps you break down your goals. It really enables you to focus in and put your efforts in like in alignment as to what is important and what matters and when it matters. So when we talk about goals, you usually hear SMART, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, as well as time bound. And these are important. When you're creating your goals with work, with home, you need to have your goals laid out and then put them into quadrants. And this also helps because if you're like, okay, this report at work today, I have to do this or I'm staying until 8 o'clock at night. Well, if you make that a priority, you might not have to stay till 8. You may be able to leave on time, go home, go to the movies, catch, dinner, whatever it is, to really sort of balance that. And it is truly a balancing act. There's no one that I've met that's like, no, my work-life balance is perfect, right? It's always a wave. Some weeks you're like, no, I'm good. Other weeks you're like, hey, I've procrastinated is usually my excuse is I waited too long and now I've got to sit here until 8 o'clock at night and get this done. Happens to all of us, but just making sure you know what's important and when it's due, managing your time does help you. And I think, Heather, we spoke before about white space in your calendar, and that helps your work-life balance too. Just say, you know what, on Friday after work, I need an hour to just do whatever it is I want to do. If it's sit here and stare at a wall, then that's what I'm going to do for that hour. If it's sitting in the bathtub with bubbles and reading my favorite book, that's what I'm going to do. And really lowering that stress level also helps, and does it work in every job? No, I've met medical doctors. They're like, I can't take breaks in the middle of surgery. I've got to finish the surgery. So no, it doesn't apply to, if you're in the medical field, please don't take breaks during surgery, but any other time, definitely, take a break, breathe, and sort of reset yourself. And I think that will really help with that work-life balance.
You mentioned a couple times the infamous word to a lot of us in the workplace, break, right? That I think is that magical unicorn sometimes when you're working, because like you said, you get focused or you're just so determined to get it done. Maybe you procrastinated to the last minute and now you're on the crunch, you're on the clock to get something done. How would you suggest that we get those breaks into our day so that way we can enhance not only our productivity, but our mental well-being?
Absolutely. So scheduled breaks throughout the day are so crucial to our job, our school, and wherever it is. They're so important to schedule, and that's the key word there is schedule. Taking regular breaks actually leads to improved focus. You get way more creative. You have more overall job satisfaction, and just stepping away from work tasks just periodically shows and allows your brain to rest and recharge. And this really prevents cognitive sort of fatigue and burnout for anyone who has sat at work for 3, 4, 5 hours. And all of a sudden you're like, why does my head hurt? I can't think straight. Why am I not getting this number right? We're always working with numbers when it comes to management. And why is 5 + 5 11? It should never be 11. Well, it's your brain. Your cognitive functions are starting to slow because it's just overworked. So I always like to actually schedule. And I know that sounds silly, but schedule a break. You have a big report to do that day. What does it normally take you? 3 hours? Challenge yourself. Just say, okay, after the first hour, I'm going to walk away for 5 minutes. I'm just going to, no matter where I am in that report, I'm stopping. I'm going to go to the water cooler, get some water cooler gossip, to kind of let my brain rest, or I'm going to go outside and take a little lap and then come back, do it another hour and see if it still takes you the 4 hours, or did your brain clear up and now it's only taking you 3 hours? I noticed when I started taking breaks, things started actually moving faster, even though I was taking 15 minutes out of that time just to let my brain sort of reset. I think for me, resetting my mind was so important, especially at this time. I was working full time, I was going to school full time, still had to have my social commitments with my friends and my family. And I noticed that when it came from going to work to going home and doing school, and then we're going to go out to dinner, I promise, 8 o'clock came and I'm like, I am too tired. I just want to get in my PJs and order some DoorDash or something. And when I started to schedule those breaks, even writing my dissertation, I'm like, nope, an hour is all I'm going to do, and then I'm going to take a break. It really helped. It really helped me focus in more and actually get more excited about it. Especially when I was writing my dissertation, because it took me so many years to do, and I would put so many hours in, and then I'd get it kicked back. And I'm like, wow, how did I misspell the title of my dissertation? What am I thinking? So I started scheduling time, and all of a sudden it was defense time. And I'm like, what just happened? It took me so many years to get to this point, and I felt like I was nowhere near ready. And now all of a sudden, my chair was like, I'm not really sure, but you're moving fast and let's keep doing it. So I kept taking those breaks and working, and my brain just kept coming up with new and exciting, in my opinion, things for my dissertation. And it really did help. And from a productivity standpoint, scheduled breaks help you maintain your attention, which is so important, because I know all of us have those moments of zone out, right? You're like, I'm working, and you're like, wait, what's going on? And it even happens when you're driving, right? You're driving, all of a sudden you're thinking about that thing that happened, and all of a sudden you pull up to your house and you're like, uh-oh, I hope I didn't hit any red lights. I hope I didn't run over any trees when I got here. And it happens when you're working too. And that's when mistakes happen. Mistakes happen when your brain doesn't quite do what it's supposed to be doing in that moment. But it could be anything. When it comes to your break, anything will happen. Some people prefer just doing some stretching. Some people prefer just taking a walk. Doing some deep breathing exercises during your breaks can really reduce muscle tension and alleviate stress. Do you ever do this when you're sitting for a while, your shoulder? Yep, that's all the stress from you sitting there and trying to focus for so long. So being able to alleviate that stress really boosts your mood as well. It also offers a time for social interaction. For me, breaks are talking. I mean, anyone who knows me knows that I can sit and have a conversation with anybody about anything. And that was my break, was just taking 5 minutes to stop by someone's office, see how they were doing, see how their kids were doing, how was the baseball game. And for me, that relaxed my brain, right? That was my fun time. And then now you go back and you sit and you work, and you'll notice that your function improves, which is so important when we're, doing work. We always want to make sure that our work is sort of the best that we can do. And taking those scheduled breaks really does. And it does take a lot of effort. You're not going to be like one day, just all of a sudden be the best at taking breaks. It takes time. So try just 1 or 2 breaks a day. Take it into 3. If you can't do it every 30 minutes, I get it. But, try to schedule those and just watch how much more productive you are because of taking those breaks.
I like how you're explaining too that schedule those breaks, right? So we're talking about the time management and we're scheduling the breaks, right? So we're now being mindful of what we're doing and when. And I think from listening to you speak before and others, that being aware of how you're spending your time is just as important as organizing your time. And often people struggle to even identify that, like, what am I doing that I'm not getting this done? Going back to procrastination and that white space. So you and I have talked a lot about white space. That's breathe. For me, I call it that breathing time, right? When I finally get a moment to just breathe, because you've got to work it in, right? Just like our breaks, we've got to work it in. How can we identify where we're going awry in our time management?
Absolutely. I like to do an audit. I call it a time audit. And again, a lot of these things I'm saying, I've done them personally because I realized I was falling short, either at work or on my dissertation or my personal life. Something was falling short and I didn't know how to juggle all of it at once. So I literally was like, everything I do, I'm going to just write down. Now, I'm not scheduling anything because at the time I'm like, I don't need a schedule. Like, I know everything. So I was just taking basically an audit. And I said, you know what? I woke up at 9 a.m. today. I ate breakfast till 9:30, got in the shower 9:30, got out at 10. Yeah, I'm a long shower. Do this, got dressed. I mean, I wrote down everything. And all of a sudden I realized I was really wasting time on things that didn't matter. I was, writing 7, 8, 9 pages of annotated bibs for my dissertation when that didn't get me anywhere. I knew what the article was about. I didn't need a 7-page annotated bibliography. I needed a paragraph to remind me, and just sort of cutting down on the wasted time. Now, if that was something I really enjoy doing, I would make sure that I put that time in, like I like a good bubble bath sometimes at night and I take 45 minutes. I enjoy that. It was a stress reliever. So I don't see that as wasted time, but people that are like, soaking in your own filth, I don't want to do that. They might see that as being a huge waste of time and say, nope, cross that off the list. But once I started auditing my time and just realizing where the time was going, I was able to cut those out. And I remember talking to someone about this and they're like, well, I wasted 3 hours chasing my toddler around. How do I knock that out? And I'm like, well, I'm not here to teach you how to parent, but if you see that as a time waster, maybe you can cut that down by doing some other things. But just seeing sort of where your time goes and then knowing what's important in that audit. If going to see your son's baseball game, top priority, then we need to make time for that baseball game, whatever that is, because you only get so many baseball games, right? Especially with kids. Sometimes it's baseball, then it's soccer, and then it's plays, and then they don't even want you to show up because they're too cool for school. So you always have to schedule the time that's important. And honestly, writing down everything I did was a huge, some people say it was a waste of time, but for me, it saved me time in what to schedule, how to schedule, and how to be mindful of that. And one thing I like to do is schedule what I like to call mindful time, where I just really kind of think about my day and just sort of reflect on it. And I do it to lower my anxiety level because at home, what I noticed it late at night when I'm falling asleep, my brain would start to race with everything that happened that day. Should I have done this better? Should I have done that better? Should I have worked on this? And all of a sudden I can't sleep and I'm just up thinking about the stuff that I did that day. So to alleviate that, right before dinner, I schedule time to really just do that. Just sit and reflect on my day and say, you know what, I'm okay with the day that I had today. Or tomorrow I'm going to schedule more for XYZ or for ABC. And it helped me sleep better at night because, we all know sleep is the steam that powers these engines. So sleeping is what makes our brains work. So I did it because I knew my brain was going to run me through it anyways. So to take a step back and to do it before it did it itself helped me to sort of be calm and relax as well.
So how can we, incorporate some of these techniques like the mindfulness, a lot of people talk meditation, I take those moments to breathe. How can we incorporate this into our routine to support like time management as well as that life balance that we're striving for?
Absolutely. So I'm a big fan for anyone. This is no plug for Apple, but anyone who has an Apple device, you'll see on there you have mindful minutes. And you basically, especially on the watch, you set it for like, I think mine's 2 minutes now. And you just sit there and watch this little thing go in and out and you breathe as you watch it. And again, I thought it was silly at first. I'm like, yeah, people like it. Let me try it. And it helped. And it was just 2 minutes a day. Who doesn't have 2 minutes to just give to sit and breathe? Like you said, Heather, breathing is sometimes just so important. You forget to do it, right? And people with anxiety will say they get that like, in their throat. And honestly, that helps. If you can just take some time to be mindful, breathe, I'm a big, big fan of it. It works for me, but it really just involves sort of being intentional, paying attention to that moment, be open, be curious. I'm not a fan of meditation. I don't like being quiet, as you can tell. It's not my favorite thing. So it's a struggle for me. But I have taken some classes to sort of work on my meditation because so many people say it just really helps them become aware and promotes mental clarity. And I need that. I know my brain goes a million miles an hour and I know I need it, but it's just so hard for me because my mind starts to wander. But one way to really incorporate mindfulness into a daily routine is start the day with a little brief minute, 2 minute of mindful meditation sessions. This can involve just sitting and breathing, like the app on your watch or on your phone, just sitting and just breathing before the day, right? Usually our day is the mornings are the most peaceful. I know those of you with toddlers or younger, probably pretty hectic in the morning, but if you just get up just a few minutes before they do, sit up in bed and just breathe and just think about that can really help set your day, right? Everybody, especially those of you that have kids and your kid wakes you up sick in the middle of the night, what happens that next day at work? You're miserable, right? You're just like, my day was set off terribly because my kid's vomiting, I have a headache, I don't even know if I showered this morning, but like I'm here. And just taking a few minutes to breathe and really sort of set that, I guess they call it positive mindset, really can help. And I mean, you don't need, there's people that can meditate for 2 and 3 hours. And I wish, but it can help. Just take a few minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, if that's all you have, and try to sort of do that. Some people need a break in the middle of the day. You can do this mindful sort of meditation throughout the day, but it is so important. And one way you might be doing it already is when you notice you're starting to get stressed at work, at home, get up, go for a walk. What are you usually doing when you're walking? You're breathing, you're looking around, you're taking in sort of nature. Right there is definition of mindful motivation. You don't have to be sitting there with your hands up and your knees. You don't need that. Just sit and breathe and just focus and let your mind be calm. Calming your mind is the main sort of ingredient or what they're looking for when it comes to that. And everybody's going to be different. Everybody's practice is going to be different. Some of you will go sit home, wake up, try to breathe and just say, well, that just stressed me out more. Maybe that's not your thing. Maybe getting up and going for a walk is, or just being in a quiet room, not really using your brain. Definitely, at least in my opinion, can really set your day better, give you better time management, and just make you an overall nicer person, right? Isn't that what we all want? We all want nicer people in the world. So I think the less stress that we can sort of put into ourselves definitely helps and reflects on others.
Wow. Yeah, like you said, you have to be intentional about those moments and making sure that you're making them. And if you're balancing your time, if you're mindful of your time and what's going on, you're taking those one-off moments, how they come, how it fits in your schedule, it's really going to make that impact. So thank you, Dr. Allen, for coming on and really talking to us about that everyday life balance, because I think a lot of us struggle to find it. And I think you've presented a lot of great tips and techniques for us to try, because you have to try. You have to find what works for you. So Dr. Allen, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate it.
And everyone, I hope you enjoyed this, but keep the conversation going as we bring awareness to mental health. We have a few other podcasts this episode where we are going to break down mental health and have those conversations. So be sure to like and follow and subscribe. We hope to hear you guys again soon. And again, thank you, Dr. Allen, for joining us.
Thank you for journeying with us today on Keiser Voices, the Story of Success. As we close this chapter, remember, every story has its next page.